Hello, this is Amy Wheeler with the uh, Yoga Therapy Hour. And I am so happy to introduce our first guest, our inaugural guest of this entire podcast, who is the new executive director of the International Association of Yoga Therapists. But before we get there, I would like to just start with an auspicious beginning. I do this before all of my yoga classes. I light the candle and just give some love and some gratitude for all of the teachers that have come before us, and also the celebration of light, that light that is inside each one of us, that is eternal, that is all-knowing, and that yoga helps us to uncover. So I also want to thank Give Back Yoga for co-producing this podcast, and you can visit them at www.givebackyoga.org and look for the Yoga Therapy Hour with Amy Wheeler. And we'll have all the past archives of the podcast up there, but we'll also tell you who the guests are for the upcoming months. And then we have a private Facebook group that we will be discussing whatever each guest brings to us and offers to us. We can then go to the Facebook group and discuss it. What do we think? What do we like? What don't we like? What do we want to see more of? And even the guests themselves can come in there and discuss with us if they'd like. So that Facebook group is called Yoga Therapy Hour with Amy Wheeler. And we will, invite you in if you'd like to join us. And then lastly, we have had some very generous support in sponsoring getting this podcast going in this month of May. And so our first sponsor is Teddy's Heart, which is a nonprofit organization that helps support individuals who provide traditional and integrative veterinary care. They also provide support for rescuing animals, training animals, sheltering animals, and also support for the human families. So if you'd like to know more about teddysheart.org, go ahead and head over there and pay it forward. So thank you so much for coming today. I am so happy to just welcome you as the new director of IAYT. And Alyssa, I think the first question all of us have is, how do you say your last name properly?
Well, you can pronounce it as Wostrel or Wostrel. Wostrel is what I go with, Alyssa Wostrel. W-O-S-T-R-E-L. I usually spell it out to make it easier. But yeah, so you can just Alyssa. Alyssa W.
I think the worst thing is to say someone's name wrong for a long, long time. And so I think we should all just get it figured out right away at the beginning. So
Thank you.
So Alyssa, I kind of want to tell everyone a little bit about your background and then have you fill in the gaps and the details and the things that make your background so perfect for where the International Association of Yoga Therapists is today and the skill set that we need going forward. I think you're such a unique and interesting and amazing choice to lead our organization because of where we need to go in the next 5 to 10 years. And I just think your background meshes perfectly with what the needs of the organization were. So I just want to say congratulations to the hiring committee for finding you, for hiring you and getting you, up and running.
Oh, that's super kind. I am delighted to be in this role. I'm honored to be now the second executive director from my predecessor, John Kepner, as the founding executive director, whose shoulders I'm standing along with you, Amy, as the former president of the IAYT board and served on the board for 6 years. And your presence is felt still on the board, and I've just so enjoyed getting to know you as well as the other board members, the current board members. And and I'm delighted to be here as your inaugural guest. What an honor. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed getting to know you since I've just started this job since January in the full-time capacity, for those who are listening and viewing. And I came on in a part-time capacity back in October, but since my predecessor, John, was definitely at the helm, I really didn't, step into those shoes until January. So you can imagine at this stage, with everything, all the spirit and the reality of transition that we're all in globally with the pandemic, number one, how that's affecting smaller membership associations like IAYT and many others is very real, right? Because we're all feeling those pressures of how COVID and the pandemic has affected our practice, our not only our lifestyle, but also our businesses, our finances, all of that. So we've got COVID at play. We have the energy of transition at play after many years of leadership by my predecessor and kind of understanding the pathways that have been so ably carved out. So I am very fortunate to have stepped into a position with IAYT that there's an infrastructure that's been built in with incredible focus and speed, right? For a profession that is so nascent, an emerging profession, yoga therapy, really 14 years, 14 years, even though the roots are from ancient, 2000 years ago and taking us forward with all that richness, but the emergence of the profession itself is so nascent. So it's remarkable the infrastructure we have in place.
Can I just yell that from the mountaintops? When I was on the board and the president, all I heard was, why aren't we further along? How come we don't have licensing? How come we're not, A, B, C, D? And I just kept trying to let people know that, we're 30 years behind acupuncture, really, in terms of our progress and when we got organized as a profession. And to only have really been, setting up this infrastructure for 14 years, we are light years ahead of most professions, doing such a great job. And I know there's more work to be done, of course, but I also think we need to celebrate how much we've done, primarily with volunteers and excellent volunteers.
Oh, the spirit of volunteerism at IAYT is an incredible gift for a new ED like myself, stepping in with such an incredible staff, board, and volunteerism that's expressed not only through the committees, but in a myriad of ways. Our volunteers, we put out a call for volunteers for, a task force. For instance, we launched our DEI task force in the not so long ago. And we get really strong responses, and we have fantastic volunteer engagement, which of course is a measurement of the community writ large, right? So we have a membership that's just over about 5,200 members. And of those, somewhere around 3,400 are certified yoga therapists, so there's CIYTs. The others are members that could be friends and allies or yoga teachers considering certification, any myriad, students themselves. In fact, our student membership really accelerated recently in the first quarter. So, but to your point, Amy, the idea that we would have 160 schools, with 60 of those schools having accredited programs that went through our own architecture of accreditation that we have created over the past 14 years, and then come out through the other side into membership in that funnel and through certification. And we are now have gone through successfully one recertification cycle, with about 80% of those who have gone through have recertified. So, it's an incredible record, and it's incredible not only for how much has been able to be put together successfully and very substantially, right? It's very substantial,
Right.
not a fragile
So
infrastructure.
well done.
Carefully thought out. So again, it's a delight to step into it. Now, I will say this on the other side of that, with a staff that is mostly part-time, some full-time people, and going at building this architect, kind of building this infrastructure out over the span of a short period of time, and then sorry, got distracted. Building it out over a short period of time. I lost my train of thought. because the screen.
I just popped a few people in with us that we want to welcome, but you know, you were just saying the structure, the foundation is built so well and so strong. And
Yes.
I think that, you know, when I look at what we've done so quickly, and also that it's an international organization. And while we want to recognize and honor every single country that also has their own organization, and we don't necessarily see ourselves as this, you know, kind of mother organization on, you know, hierarchically above everyone, at the same time, we are hoping to make this a true international organization, which is a whole nother step, right?
Well, it is. And I love your premise and your mission with this program, with Yoga Therapy Hour, that your guests are going to reflect the international palette, you know, in the travels that you've done across the world, engaging in conversations and presentations about yoga therapy, the promise of yoga therapy, the differentiation between yoga therapy and yoga. And what does that mean now for our future in health and wellness? What does that mean for whole health? What is the promise of yoga therapy? So we get to hear, you know, because I'll be tuning in from the people that you've engaged with, that I may also at some point, if I'm fortunate, have an opportunity to also talk with, and we strategically, we need to figure out at IAYT, how do we get our arms around the international community in a way where we're bringing them the benefit that they're looking for from us. You know, we're squarely established here in the US, but we have UK, Canada, Australia, India, Israel, Japan, many other 52 other countries as part of our membership already. So, and new members and new schools continue to join. So there's very significant interest. We get to, we're lucky because we're a standard bearer. We get to kind of play that role, but we need to make it worth everyone's while. How do we remain, you know, supportive and bring benefits to all those who are interested in what we're doing?
And collaborate with them. I mean, the thing that made me want to do this podcast after going to some meetings with people from all over the world, the Global Yoga Therapy Consortium is one of the larger ones, was it gave me so much hope, because there's people in every country you can ever name or imagine doing yoga therapy. And sometimes it feels like we're kind of alone. We're pushing this big boulder up the hill. Is this going to work? And when I saw and met and talked to so many other people that have been doing the same thing we've been doing for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in their own countries, I thought, oh, this is going to work. This is like the 100th monkey effect, where everybody's doing their part. And then, you know, it could be even something like the COVID pandemic, that healthcare and others realize that we have something really, really special to offer that is different than what anybody else is offering in healthcare and beyond.
Absolutely.
And at that moment, the 100th monkey effect, it kind of explodes.
Yeah, and it's interesting also to understand more about how yoga therapy is deployed and how it is executed. You know, what is the practice of yoga therapy from the practitioner perspective in other countries? You know, I mean, in the UK, it's interesting to learn from others, and Heather Mason in the Minded Institute about the work that they're doing very successfully with the National Health Service on behalf of yoga therapy. And from in Sweden, you know, I had a wonderful talk with Corin Ball and about what they've been able to achieve in Sweden, again, under sort of national health system, you know, healthcare system. And we have a different system here, as we all well know, in the US, much more complexity and many more barriers to entry. So in the work that we do, bringing the profession forward in terms of the emerging space, I think it's important that we look at unification of purpose, like unifying with our brother and sister organizations where we can, so that our collective voice is stronger, where we're starting to move into realms that are about advocacy and policy, advocacy certainly for where yoga therapy can live and impact in a whole health system sort of perspective, which is already starting to thrive in organizations like the VA, as you mentioned, Amy, in your promo for this show. So the VA is a wonderful opportunity where we already have a foothold in, right, with yoga therapy.
Right.
And hopefully we'll be getting a position description so there can be employment along their system. Then how do we find a foothold in the other systems of care? How do we enter that? And how do we differentiate yoga and yoga therapy? I mean, some of it's already been done, right? Other organizations, Dean Ornish's um, how he employs yoga therapists in stress management, quotes here. And people are getting paid for those jobs. I mean, that's took 16 years for him to get it into Medicare, but I mean, that's
Can we just highlight that though? You and I had a meeting with he and Matt Taylor, and to hear Dean Ornish say that it took 16 years to get his program, which had research behind it, very well done. 16 years to get it covered by insurance. That's a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's a long time, and that's one little slice of his
Right.
program in Medicare in a specific way. So yeah, we need patience. We need to ask for patience amongst ourselves, and we need to sort of take opportunities where we can with our membership and beyond to talk about this. What's the process? What could it look like? Where are the best opportunities for collaboration for yoga therapy where we are now? How can we highlight what we have to offer? How do we educate? What's our message? How do we really bring out the promise of yoga therapy in our messaging? What's our elevator speech? How do we
Can we all get a similar message?
sell
You
it?
know? I was on a Facebook page the other day and someone said, is restorative yoga and yoga therapy pretty much the same thing? And I saw probably 50 different comments with 50 different messages. And I just basically wrote the definition of what IAYT has said, which is yoga therapy is to do an individualized assessment and then a health treatment plan that sets goals. The techniques that we use are specific to the assessment that we did, and then we track the progress over time. And that's quite different than a wonderful practice of therapeutic restorative yoga, but they really are apples and oranges, right?
Exactly. And the application of which, how do we show the progression? And we do this a lot in our yoga therapy. Today, Lori Highland Robertson, who's our communications lead and editor, does a wonderful job of highlighting and teaching too, right? Teaching and sharing with our members and our readers about the application by giving platform to lots of our yoga therapists who are doing really extraordinary work in the field. So that's great, but still the essential, the core message of what you just articulated, Amy. How do we package that? I mean, and I know that sounds funny. We're not talking about a product, but we need to be able to speak fluently and easily about the promise of yoga therapy, backing it up with, Matt Taylor, you mentioned, who's doing really interesting work with United Healthcare and research that is going to help us be more statistically oriented about, okay, how does yoga therapy have an impact on inflammation? What do we see in cases of low back pain or chronic pain? How does it help us turn the corner and keep costs down, and there's no side effects and people aren't getting injured with yoga therapy? They're, very carefully guided. Also, and in addition to all that kind of dry stuff, which is important, there's the core piece around transformation, right? The whole
Right.
health piece of it, right? Like, how do we talk about it in an integrated fashion? We have more scientific data. We have, kind of like real and pragmatic information about here's how you can apply yoga therapy in these conditions,
Right.
without getting prescriptive, right? We walk this fine line. But in addition to that, along the way, here's what your client or patient also may experience. This transformation, the biopsychosocial spiritual piece, the spiritual piece, how do we articulate it?
Absolutely. And I think, we could have a task force at IAYT just on that, on really trying to get what is our clear, succinct, like you said, elevator speech to help people very quickly and easily understand what we do. Because if we can't get it across in 10 seconds or less,
Yeah.
people, you know,
Yeah.
they don't hear it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And that's a great idea.
Yeah, you know what? I'm coming up with more work for you. But so here's where we really didn't go into your background that much at the beginning, but here's where it comes in. Your career has been devoted to complementary, integrative, whole person healthcare, and you are really interested in supporting this paradigm shift about the creation of health and well-being beyond just, you know, not just getting from being unwell to well, but then all the way up to what we might call salutogenesis or eudaimonia, where we're living a happy, healthy, coherent life.
What a gift. What a gift. And so inaccessible to so many. And that's so wrong. I mean, yes, from a, I mean, I started in the private sector working with homeopathic pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. And I had studied classical homeopathy back then in my 20s. And I already had my MBA in marketing. And I wanted to merge the two perspectives. And homeopathy had played a role in my early, motherhood year, my 20s and early 30s. And I was very attached to both. And it was during the time that I worked with a German pharmaceutical company for a number of years in New Mexico in sales and marketing roles, and kind of, climbed up the ladder, working on product, like interfacing with physicians of different stripes, and practitioners of different stripes, right? So acupuncturists, chiropractors, in some cases midwives, but not so much, MDs, conventional MDs, integrative MDs, naturopathic docs. And our mission was to help them identify gaps in their practice where we could potentially support them through education about this particular line of products. But it was a theory. It was called homotoxicology. It was about detoxification, cleanse, with the homeopathic compounds, or big compounds. So it wasn't classical homeopathy. And very well researched. So I learned how to understand research. I mean, there were double-blind, placebo-controlled trials that were done mostly in Germany. And I traveled to Germany, became part of these international teams. And so I got schooled, in this idea of how do you create a bridge to conventionally minded doctors. I was calling on sometimes ear, nose, and throat doctors, and to plastic surgeons, and talking about Traumeel, which was a combination of 12 botanicals and 2 minerals in a compound that's an anti-inflammatory. It's available in 7 different dosage forms. So I learned how to work with, in sort of this pharmaceutical rep fashion, leading samples and doing roundtables and being on the road with speakers. And we had like over 300 events per year. So
I can see that as a transferable skill to what you're going to be doing now, which is going into allopathic medicine, maybe people with very conventional idea of what can help and what can't help. I mean, and basically educating doctors, nurses, physicians, assistants, psychologists about the different ways that something that's unique and different and maybe they haven't heard of before can actually be complementary care to the allopathic care that people are receiving.
You got it. Exactly. That's what I was doing back then, and was being involved. I was involved in how sort of what our messaging was through the medical education development, right? So we would develop different angles and packages and material that our speakers would speak to. It's a commodified way of looking at it. It's not an exact match of what we're doing. So I don't want people to think, oh, she's just going to come in, sell. I mean, it's not that, it's not like that, but the skill set, I think you're right, Amy, that, it helps clarify pathways, and helps also define where with limited resources, where should we put our, our hard one, resources of human capital, of volunteers, of our financial resources. Where do we focus? That'll help in that differentiation, right? All that experience back then. But in doing that, I did that for many years. I consulted for many years in similar roles and started my own consulting group and things like that. And I loved it for a long time. And then I started to feel like, I wanted to be part of a solution rather than focused with a singular company on their issues about their bottom line. Because with that kind of approach, when you're dealing with a product, no matter how interesting the product is or how much good it's doing, because I felt I was helping people take anti-inflammatories that were homeopathic that had not only, they had no side effect profile, so I was helping to further wellness just by the application of a different type of safer product. And so I felt really good about the work that I was involved in. But my lens started to cloud over a little bit, and I realized I wanted to be involved in policy and advocacy and part of the solution to our broken healthcare system, right? Because I saw a lot of how it's broken through this work.
I love that. It's like, being in the trenches
Yeah.
and seeing all the dysfunctional things happening and then saying, you know what, I want to be a leader in the field. And you became the executive director of the Academic Collaborative for Integrative Health, the ACIH.
That's right.
Tell us
That's
just a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's where I came to. That's a 501c3 consortium group that the membership mainly are schools of integrative medicine, universities or colleges of naturopathic medicine, Bastyr, for instance, Southern California University,
Mhm.
which I know you're affiliated with, Amy, in Whittier, which has multiple programs, Ayurveda, chiropractic, massage therapy, acu. Lots of member schools are under this consortium roof. And then the regulatory agencies that are connected to the schools. So NCCAOM, which is the National Commission for Acupuncture, and the Certifying Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, and all those other organizations that are attached to massage therapy, naturopathic medicine,
Chiropractic.
chiropractic, midwifery, the 5 professions of integrative care, the 5 licensed professions. So, and then there was a TWM, a traditional world medicine and emerging professions group. And that's actually where I got to know about IAYT.
Yeah.
I met John at a conference. I met John Kepner at a conference years ago when I was in that role as ED. And so just to go back just a couple of ticks, so prior to joining ACIH as the ED, I stepped into, after a year of studying for my MPH, for my master's in public health, in policy, right? So I'm going to go back in, I'm going to sort of educate myself around policy. I lasted in that full-time study for about a year when I got an offer for stepping into this ED role at the Integrative Health Policy Consortium, which is a 501c4 group, which means you can lobby. And I was with that group as an ED, and there I really got schooled in nonprofit management. That was before I came to ACIH. So in the past decade, it's been about nonprofit administration and management, sort of learning on the job and applying my business skills to that new kind of arena. And my personal mission for decades now has been to be involved in work that provides for opportunities to increase access to integrative care, to wellness, to health promotion for all, right? So, I mean, we're so far from that, but that's where it feels real to me. And so IHPC, which is the Integrative Health Policy Consortium, and then ACIH, kind of like brother and sister organizations. They actually are related to each other and how they were founded. And it was just an amazing schooling and a great opportunity for me. And that's how that opened a doorway to conversations with, oh, sorry, should have turned that off, with IAYT.
So what's really interesting to me, and I'm sure you've heard this, so I hope this isn't a surprise, but there was kind of a discussion about do we want to hire someone from the inside that we know that, or would it be good to find someone like you that is steeped in integrative medicine and alternative medicine and policy, and use that to connect IAYT to
Mhm.
integrative healthcare? And I, for one, am so happy that we chose someone who wasn't on the inside. I feel like we shouldn't be incestuous. We should
Yeah.
go out and find people that are really know what's going on in the integrative health world. And so I know you've been like a long-term yogi, like decades and decades. And I'm really happy that, we found you as someone who's been working in this field, but maybe not, you know,
Right.
somebody that we know very, very well that came up from the inside of the organization.
Well, honestly, I mean, thanks, Amy. The since I've been, immersed now, for the past couple quarters, I think it's incredibly, I don't know, brave, maybe courageous of IYT, to have taken this step outside of the yoga space, the yoga and yoga therapy community. Um, and of course, I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity, but at the same time, I understand better now the tendency to want to have a CIYT in this particular role. I mean, it really is such a um, there's so much to learn about it. And so I'm learning as I go so that I can speak the language well and do a good job representing what is available, as we've already discussed, through yoga therapy for many different constituents, right? But I will say this, again, back to the volunteerism and the commitment of the community. The staff, and there are many CIYTs at IAYT, who I've become very close to very fast, and whom I trust completely to guide me in those situations where I don't have the same clarity of, many, many years of training that is required to become, a CIYT. And that does come up, and thank goodness that we have not only the staff, but also our allies like yourself, Amy, and thought leaders in the field who we can call on for guidance. And I am doing that on a regular basis. And
You
everyone,
are. You must have had, I don't know, 200 meetings with people to listen.
I
That's
did.
what I love about you. You're listening.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That is what I bring with me, and a desire to learn and to listen and to make sure that I'm understanding the messaging. And it's a delight. Also, I'll say this, that one thing I didn't expect when I stepped into the job, with the idea of collaboration being at the forefront. Let's bring some collaborative energy. Let's take what we've done such an incredible job building and see where the tentacles can go. Where is the good match for our next stage as we start to build out a little bit, and connect out. And so when I came in and I was having all those meetings, I was really struck with how much opportunity for collaboration there is within our yoga sphere, right? Yoga and yoga therapy and our brother and sister organizations within the space.
Yeah.
So right away we connected with GBYU on the COVID initiative, because that was front and center, right? And that sort of just manifested. But really, I mean, so many other organizations that we've just started to intentionally connect with, Accessible Yoga and Yoga Unify, and of course Yoga Alliance, and many others that we Black Yoga Teachers Association,
Yep. Yoga
just
Service Council,
Service Council. Yes, I mean, and so I'm learning that landscape and really excited about how we're going to build bridges. But we have to be careful about our resources, because we're already we're dibbling and dabbling in a lot of different arenas, and so we're going to be very strategic. That we're in
Well,
a.
that's what I wanted to go to, because hallelujah, we have a strategic plan, and I think it's public because we're going to talk about it, and everyone in the organization and even outside of the organization can see what are the priorities for the next 3 years? What do we value? Who are we? So, the mission of IAYT is it supports research and education in yoga and serves as a professional organization for yoga teachers and yoga therapists worldwide. So that's, part of our mission. And then, of course, we want to establish yoga as a recognized and respected therapy. But the strategic plan that you have been putting together and you shared parts of with me before this interview, I just want to go over the 4 major goals in this podcast. I think we have enough time to do that because I want everybody listening to get on board and get all of our arrows going in the same direction with intention, with visualization, with action, with speech, with partnerships, like get everybody on the train together. So
Well,
exciting.
that's brilliant, Amy. The idea and the vision of getting everyone together, there's such strength in a collective voice. And we have the opportunity to unify around the strategic priorities of IYT as we move forward in a way that could be very substantive, as you just outlined, right? So yes, we will have the strategic plan up on the IYT site, iyt.org, probably this summer. So Marilyn Pepper Citizen, who is wearing the hat of membership manager, currently has been our lead in the strategic planning exercise.
Couldn't have a better leader than that.
I know, I know. I mean, so we're so fortunate too with our staff. We have a number of PhDs on board, and Marilyn is one of them. And she happens to have a PhD in health policy. Thank you very much. She's also a certified health and wellness coach as well as a CIYT. So she just brings like this, really this wonderful lens, and she has deep experience in guiding organizations through this strategic planning exercise. So she helped us craft a deep dive. And we started in December and we went from top to bottom and side to side, meaning that we met with we brought all of the team together, all of our part-time contractors, all of our full-time people, not just the management team. We sat together and Marilyn took us through virtual brainstorming, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And she gave us significant homework to do. And she tasked us with coming back and she sorted through all that, over probably 18 different submissions from 18 different people, like just amazing. So that was the beginning of our strategic planning, and not only just the staff, also our committees were involved. So our certification committee, our accreditation committee, our DEI task force has had input. Our board has had input, and the board's going to see a written document that's coming out after SITAR, because of course we have this huge project right now with our virtual SITAR, June 17 to 19. So that's another.
So can I just interrupt really briefly? Your leadership style, where you're bringing everyone together to the table, a round table, and listening and hearing and understanding and making people belong, and taking all the best and brightest ideas. I just love that leadership style, and I'm so happy to hear that that's how this is unfolding.
Thank you. Yeah, that comes from working in with these large consortia. They're membership associations, and it's all about consensus building. So you can't move forward. It's like those big boards, like the IHPC had like 30 people on the board, representative of each organization. So it was a real, challenge sometimes to get to consensus. I learned how to do this consensus building kind of stuff. And I think
because then they have buy-in, right? They have had a voice, so of course they're going to buy in and support it instead of backstab or do dysfunctional things, behind someone's back.
right. It's right, and we're growing.
Yeah.
IYT is growing. The committees are expanding. Our staff is expanding. Our membership is growing. Our yada yada. So we have to also grow with it and change kind of how we're getting things done. And so that's one example of it, right? So we went top to bottom, side to side, very intentionally inclusive. So no one would feel excluded. We certainly don't want that, and we want membership to feel included too. So we've already started messaging about where the strategic plan is going. Like I had an ED town hall, 2 of them in February. Yeah. So it's really only a month and a half in as a full-time ED, and we messaged about it. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're handling social justice and expressing solidarity. Here's how we're looking at strategic planning. Here's what might be of interest to you, our members. We tried to message it out, and we're going to continue doing those along with a number of other types of town halls. So anyway, so we did that. We've had tons of meetings. Marilyn has been amazing in shepherding the whole thing. And so our priority one, which really boils down to, I mean, it's connected to our mission, as you just expressed our mission. And really boils down to the need to advocate for and educate about yoga therapy to a multitude of constituents, right? That's a big goal. We have a number of initiatives that are subheadings under each goal. So that's number one goal. Okay.
And just to be clear, that's like letting healthcare providers, psychologists, maybe even K through 12 teachers, pain consortiums, like so many different players need to know who we are and what we do. And we have to educate them about that so that we can connect with them.
And even within our own sphere, like the Wellness After COVID-19 initiative that started as a community service project concept with Rob Schwar over at GBYU and morphed into an offering over 4 months on practice and research in the space and different types of practitioners that came to the forefront around the topic of COVID-19 and what yoga therapy can offer. That lives under advocate for and educate about yoga therapy. Their audience is different than our membership. It's a different patchwork quilt, and so has some similarities, but it still is another audience. So that's one example of how we would advocate for and educate about yoga therapy. And then priority 2 is our diversity, equity, and inclusion ethos, really about DEI in practice in our organization, side to side, top to bottom, trainings relative to that for our staff, our board, as well as our membership, where we can be supportive and helpful in conversation, in networking, in collaboration, in our consciousness, as expressed already and has been for several years in our Yoga Therapy Today and in our blogs, in our connections and collaborations with other organizations. And this DEI ethos also is a mandate for us to go outside of the yoga space and to connect into that integrative space. So diversity, equity, and inclusion can be defined and ought to be defined in so many different textural contexts. And that can be one other, going outside of our space and connecting externally. That's an expression also of the DEI initiatives that we have planned.
But I was so excited to see that as number 2, that it's that important to us to get on board with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, many different diverse voices coming together to make decisions, top to bottom, inclusion in the organization as well as spreading out into the world. I mean, to me, that was so thrilling to see all of you in leadership at IAYT make that such a strong statement and say, yes, we're on board. We're doing this. This is not lip service. We're not performative allies. We are getting this done. And it's in the strategic plan up front and center.
Up front and center, and will remain so. And our initiatives will reflect that. And we're already, sharing information about how that's being expressed. Everything from what we're doing at SITAR, with our DEI, we have what we call our DEI panel, but the real title is The Subtle Anatomy of Microaggressions.
Yep.
And then a discussion period related to the subtle anatomy of microaggressions, the topic at a DEI town hall at SITAR, part 2 to the last town hall that we had a couple weeks ago. So it's very much it's woven into our identity in an intentional way. And so we're finding creative and thoughtful approaches to the expression of that commitment to DEI, and we'll continue to do so.
And I noticed even scholarships for BIPOC people.
Oh, yes. Absolutely, yes. So scholarship by way of reparation for BIPOC people who would like to utilize that is available through our registration page at SITAR, which you can get to at IAYT.org. And also for World Bank country attendees who ask, and those are both 50% discounts when, those boxes, through the registration go through. So yeah, that's very intentional, and happy that we can provide that. So.
And I love, number one, that it's online, right? But I love what you're saying about weaving it through every fiber of the organization so
Yes.
that it's a seamless diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging is happening on every layer. It's
Right. I mean, right. And we all need to get there, right? In our own lives, we have to be and do the work in ourselves. And so that needs to be reflected. I mean, it's a 10-hour workday with IOIT. We got to be practicing and doing, and then take it home and practice and do, so that we can all be part of the change that just so, I mean, what's going on is just, I know, right? There are no words anymore, but so we just need to keep one foot in front of the other. And I think everyone at IYT, and all of our friends and allies, we all want to do that. So we just are moving together and making small differences, but staying on the path. Okay, yes, this is one of our main priorities. And so it does. It's interesting how it starts to become immersive, right? And you start being and doing. And then priority 3 is more about connectivity and collaboration. And that's also the integrative space that's expressed in the integrative space. But how in this scenario, what we want to do more of is to connect into interprofessional education projects and initiatives where we can highlight and be piloted as yoga therapists to show how we can be part of a multidisciplinary team. How would it work in those whole healthcare systems that do exist, like at the VA? How does yoga therapy integrate? And we already know it does. I mean, in that case, but how do we integrate more specifically? And also in this, we're going to figure out how we incorporate into our funnel, if you will, the licensed healthcare practitioners like PTs, OTs, RNs who fall in love with yoga therapy, and how do we encourage that constituency to come in, be part of what we do, become our ally, become trained, and come out with a CIYT. And maybe there's a different track or program. We're far away from having figured that out, but that's part of what that could look like.
Well, and it's reminding me of like health and wellness coaches that come in through maybe health education, like Kaiser Permanente has a health education department. And I know a lot of my college students that I work with, they actually get hired by big name hospitals to be health and wellness coaches. And if there's a niche for that that is desirable and people are getting paid, and why can't we also do something very similar with yoga therapy?
Absolutely. Amy, you've really touched on a thread there that we're looking at closely at IYT, which is the parallel between yoga therapy and what health and wellness coaching as a practice and as a community and as a profession has been able to move forward. They just got a CPT code for themselves.
I saw that. Can
Yeah,
you say what CPT stands for? Because I think, anytime we can educate people about, okay, this is what we want.
what is it? Clinical.
I don't know what the acronym, what it stands for, but it's basically a billing code.
It's a billing code. Yes. I don't remember the acronym when I turned my phone off, but it is a billing code. It means that you can be in the insurance system with that code. In this case, I don't know how many codes they have, but that did come through the grapevine. And I thought, because I think there is an interesting parallel that we can look at and how they have evolved as an emerging profession and how they
Quickly.
so quickly. Right.
And, I know yoga therapists that are getting health coaching certifications so that they can bill both. I don't know if they're supposed to, but through those codes,
Yeah, absolutely. Very
And
smart.
I feel like if they could do it, why can't we do it for those people who want to do the billing? Not everyone chooses to, but it's interesting to me because it's not a license. We don't have to go through the whole huge licensing thing, but those people who wanted to do that paperwork and bill could. And I think, there's kind of a divide, those people who want to keep yoga therapy away from insurance and away from billing, and those who want to go towards that. And that's a wonderful solution for those who want to go in that direction.
Yeah, it's a real hybrid choice, that health and wellness coaching. So yeah, we have to do a deep dive into the construct of it. How did they how did they do that? So we'll learn more. We'll report.
And then the fourth one, improve business practices. Tell me about that one, because I have so much to say about that, but I want to hear what your perspective is on that.
No, I mean, I'm new still, but that particular, I mean, that's great to have as a strategic priority because it means that all of us as a team will be exploring efficiencies and streamlining of functions and processes internally that can only help us as a membership association to be able to bring more benefits more quickly, and to create more and do more for our members without getting bogged down in systems internally. So for instance, like our membership association software, that is, we're probably growing out of it, and it causes some problems for some of our members, and it causes some problems for us. And so there's more, kind of streamlined packages out there that we'll be assessing that we might make a shift to, not without a lot of assessment and budgeting for it, because it'll be more costly. But that could improve the experience of our members and what we can offer to our members and how we do it and how we staff for it. So that's one example. That would be one initiative that will bring to that. What comes to mind for you, though?
I had a totally different idea. I think I misunderstood the fourth point of the strategic plan. I was thinking that as yoga therapists, there's not a lot of jobs out there for $80,000 a year plus, healthcare benefits. And I've noticed as a school director of Optimal State Yoga Therapy School that the biggest thing is when the students graduate, they need to find work. And so I thought that was targeted at
For the members.
the members,
Correctly.
getting some support around business practices, but maybe that goes more to the schools themselves. Like we've decided to have a huge chunk of our training be around business because we've realized that's one of the biggest obstacles is having creating a sustainable living for yourself financially and also energetically.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, such an important point. And although what I shared with you is more specific to our internal operations, that will improve the experience of the member, right? With more kind of ease of movement around our site and accessing APD and stuff. I mean, actually, I thought about APD while you were talking about that, Amy, because we're only in our second year of providing our approved professional development courses. We have something like 350 out of a total of like 500 more courses, 350 that are active. And I think that there's a real opportunity for us to look at this topic. It comes up a lot. I've heard from other yoga therapists and thought leaders around this is one of the areas that we need to really look at and define opportunities, and also education around best business practices for the yoga therapists, for the newly certified yoga therapist, how to set up your practice and so on. And that I'd like to see us do more webinars, right? We don't really do a lot of webinars. You go to Yoga Alliance and they have like 5 webinars a day. So I think that we can do that. And that's also part of what we can bring as features and benefits. We're talking about, in addition to the town halls, bringing more webinars that are practical and pragmatic information for those who really need and want more guidance. Another thing that we are looking at doing is an internal career center that would be part of a benefit that we bring to our membership. When you become a member, you can access the career center. Problem with that is that yoga therapy isn't trending that strong yet as a job description or a job title. You get yoga teacher all over the place. But so that's part of, massaging the system and again, educating. The guy thinks, who at our membership association software company, who we spoke to about the career center, he didn't understand the difference. How would he? Thought we were talking about yoga teachers. So we have work to do there too, but we'll get there.
And before we kind of finish up with the last few minutes, can you give us any update on this national exam? Because this is a big step between, first we had grandparenting for individuals to become CIYT, and we had school accreditation where you go through 800 plus hours of training and become a CIYT. And now we're moving into this national or international actually exam to make sure that we're doing a good job in our schools and we're actually meeting those competencies, those 800 hours of competencies. So can you give us any update on that and how it's coming along?
Yeah, it is. There is an update to give on the certification exam, and that is that we have a new lead with certification exam. That is Heidi Crocker. For those of you who know Heidi, she is leading us now out of the subject matter expert question development part of the phase that we were in with the certification exam that we've funded for the last couple of years with the test organization criterion. So we're coming out of this subject matter expert phase. We have over 250 questions developed, which is what we needed to get to. And I sat in on one of those 2-hour sessions with volunteers. These are all volunteers doing this intense work of test development. And it was just fascinating, brilliant. The 8 lineages are represented. There's differentiation within the questioning to help establish a common knowledge base that comes from our competencies and standards in training. And it's a brilliant move by IAYT. It's fantastic. It was very prescient by my predecessor and the whole team to put this in motion. It was a big commitment in terms of investment of time and financial resources and so on, but it's very, very strategic. Health and wellness coaches have a certification exam that the National Medical Board was part of their development with. Criterion is a very respected organization for this. It's part of ours. So the thing about the certification exam is that all the nuts and bolts of it about when do people need to take it? How much is it going to cost? What's it going to do? That's going to get figured out. We don't have all those answers yet. It's the fact that we've got it. It's going into beta. We're going to recruit 100 people to take the beta test. So we can do a little bit more statistics on it. Good, Amy will do it. And then tweak and then create a launch and a rollout that's going to make sense to our membership. We're going to let you know, why is this a great thing for our emerging profession of yoga therapy? We're going to explain it, and we're going to justify it and rationalize it. And I think everyone will be on board.
And the current CIYTs will not have to take it. It will only be the people coming, graduating from a program. And then before they become a CIYT, they need to pass the exam. And my understanding is that was a critical part of having integrative medicine accept us as a bona fide profession, that's something that they really want to see from us, and a step towards integrating into alternative.
Yeah, it's very meaningful to our medical allied professions that it exists, and that we've gone to the trouble to develop an exam like this to establish a common knowledge base. It's really about safety through their lens and through ours too. How are we certifying that the people are receiving care from our yoga therapists are receiving the highest standard of care that is predicated also by a certification exam like this. So I think it's just brilliant that we're doing it.
It is. All right. So we only have 3 minutes left, but I would love a little taste of what we can expect at SITAR, which is our international conference, which is going to be online for the first time. And SYR, which is the research conference. Has that been announced to also be online?
It has not been announced yet. We are hoping for a version of a hybrid for SERV, but we have our dates. It's November 15 to 17. And so more will be determined there. Usually we go to Kripalu. And so we're seeing if it's possible for us to, Kripalu. We usually are there, and so that may or may not manifest. It's in negotiations. They're closed right now. So But the big news is about this virtual sitar that we've all been working extremely hard on. That is June 17th to 19th. You can sign up, go to the homepage of IAYT.org and click on the registration page. The schedule is there. We have 4 keynotes. We have Stephen Porges talking about polyvagal theory. We have Carol Krukoff. We have Helene Langevin, who's NCCIH director, who's speaking to yoga and the whole healthcare system of the body. It's going to be fascinating. We have Shirley Tellis beaming in from India. Bless her. She's the only one who's going to pre-record of her keynotes. It's, with the challenging situation in India, and she'll be speaking to current research. We have those 4 wonderful keynotes. We have our CICs, our practice sessions. We have Ayurvedic cooking. We have 2 panels, an international panel, Yoga Therapy Internationally, that's going to be moderated by Diane Finlayson. We have Janet Caldwell moderating the Subtle Anatomy of Microaggressions panel with Myron Anderson, who's an expert speaker from the University of Texas in San Antonio on the same topic, wrote a book on the subject, R.W. Ells, and one other, I'm forgetting the other panelists. But anyway, 2 wonderful panels, town hall. We have our meeting of schools prior and just the evening and the morning prior. Lots of engagement opportunities, and we welcome you all. The BIPOC discount, the World Bank country discount. We are in our early bird till May 26th, I think. Also available on the website. And the prices are much lower than in previous sitars. So
that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
There's no travel expense, no airplane, no hotel, and the prices are almost half of what they normally are because there's no food, there's no banquet.
Right.
It's an amazing deal.
We have the materials available for a year for attendees, and you get your CEE requirement
Right.
done by attending sitar. So it's a good deal all around, and we welcome one and all. We've spread a wider net. We've been promoting it more widely because, of course, so many more people can attend from remote locations. So we're hoping that we'll see that. We're getting a good clip on registration. So we think we're going to have a really nice, healthy attendee group. So looking forward to that.
Well, I think you have given us such a beautiful overview of what we can look forward to in the next 1 to 3 years. The strategic plan is just amazing, seeing what you all have come up with and just learning more about you and how you're going to help take our profession to the next level and the skill sets that you bring to help us get there. I think anyone listening to this is going to be so very excited about having you as our person at the helm and your collaborative leadership style.
Thank you for your welcome and for your support and your encouragement and all those kind words. It means so much to me, and just so enjoy interacting with the membership and friends of IAYT. So everyone, stay in touch. I'm here. I want to engage. So thank you again.
If they want to get a hold of you, they can go to the IAYT website and there's a contact us page, and that will get forwarded to you.
Oh, it will right away, same day. So yeah, please. And I answer all those or set up a call. So yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. And have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk again soon when there's more news to share.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks. Be well. Okay. Bye all.